Good evening there, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully you all are having a wonderful day today. So, I thought that I would review this little video. We're going to review a video by AKHiTv. Once again, I'm not a big supporter of this channel. He is a part of New Media. He is a part of the LDBC. And I've already explained a certain amount of times why I'm not a big supporter of their channels, because they spread a lot of propaganda and, in my opinion, a lot of false narratives. They like to twist the narratives only for the fighters that they support. So it is what it is. And it is very clear that a certain amount of these channels, including AKHiTv, they are racially motivated. So it is what it is. Anyways, when it comes down to it, one of the fighters that we know that the LDBC and New Media especially has been favoring and has been trying to put in a great light, and I have no problem with trying to support certain fighters. I have no problem with that. The problem comes in when you spread false narratives of basically trying to tear down other certain fighters' names. What these guys have been alleging for a very long time is that Canelo Alvarez has been avoiding certain fighters, especially black fighters. That's what these guys have been trying to say for a very long time. So they've been especially trying to say that he's been avoiding Jermall Charlo and that he's been avoiding a Demetrius Andrade. But then when it comes to Jermall Charlo, recently ducking David Benavidez, because that's exactly what he's doing when it comes down to the overall. Now, let me tell you this. Jermall Charlo does not necessarily need to go up to 168 and face a David Benavidez if he had not talked. But the way that the way that Jermall Charlo has been talking lately, he's been acting like he has a personal beef with David Benavidez or something. So I don't know what's going on there. But when it comes down to it, Jermall Charlo has been doing this for a very long time. He's never been serious about any of these big fights, even though the LDBC and New Media for a very long time have alleged that he has been. He's never been serious about any of these big fights. I have no doubt in my mind that Jermall Charlo turned down a Canelo Alvarez contract. I have no doubt in my mind that Jermall Charlo does not want to face a David Benavidez next. Okay? We're not going to see Jermall Charlo versus David Benavidez next. Now, if I'm wrong about that, then I end up being wrong. And I will personally apologize when it comes down to it. But I don't think I'm going to be. Anyways, I want to hear what AKHiTv has to say, because as we know from AKHiTv, he has no problem basically saying that Vasily Lomachenko is ducking Devin Haney. He has no problem basically alleging that Canelo Alvarez is avoiding Jermall Charlo, that he's avoiding Demetrius Andrade and David Benavidez. This is what he says. Well, let's see what he has to say about his boy Jermall Charlo.
When Charlo says, which I quote, "I don't get this whole duck situation. I'm a champion at 160. David doesn't have a belt. People just not being smart."
I don't get the duck situation. People just not being smart. But, that's part of the game. But like me moving up to 160 to fight a nobody with no belt for nothing, I might...
Jermall, David Benavidez, I can assure you, is just, he's not just somebody. He's not a nobody. He is a somebody. Okay? He's not just some fighter, is what I was trying to say. David Benavidez is one of the top fighters in the world, especially at 168. Now, in my opinion, is he a little bit unproven against elite competition? Yes, a little bit. But you know what, Jermall? So are you. Because I can't really say definitively without a shadow of a doubt that you have an A-class win in your career. Now, maybe the Julian Williams fight, maybe you can say that was an A-class win. But is J-Rock really an A-class win? Let's be real. J-Rock lost a fight not too long ago that he probably should have not lost, and he got knocked out. So it is what it is. I mean, is J-Rock Williams really an A-class win? I'd have to think about that. Personally, in my opinion, I would say probably not. So it is what it is, even if, maybe you're going to argue it. But a certain amount of these guys are saying, well, Jermall Charlo has no reason to go up to 168 and all that sort of stuff. Well, I would agree if Jermall Charlo were not chatting all that shit. But Jermall Charlo's been talking a bunch of shit on David Benavidez for really the past year or two. So it is what it is. Why don't you go up and fight him? Because apparently the fight that you want, Jermall Charlo, is that Canelo Alvarez fight. And apparently David Benavidez also wants that Canelo Alvarez fight. So, hey, the perfect situation to possibly get that fight. Sure, it wouldn't be for a belt, But basically, whoever were to win that fight would at least trap Canelo Alvarez in somewhat of a corner, or at least put more pressure on Canelo Alvarez to get that fight. And basically what Jermall Charlo is saying right here is the same thing that I heard about Terrence Crawford when he said that he didn't want to fight Sean Porter because, oh, he just lost to Errol Spence, he doesn't have a belt, and AKHiTv and Dante's Boxing Nation were making all sorts of excuses for their boy Terrence Crawford. And the reason why is because they want a black fighter to be the #1 pound-for-pound fighter. And I have no problem with a black fighter being at the #1 pound-for-pound spot. But there is no black fighter. There is no Caucasian fighter. Well, unless you count Canelo Alvarez as Caucasian. But right now, the #1 pound-for-pound fighter is Canelo Alvarez. And a certain amount of people are going to have a problem with that. Canelo Alvarez, when you take a look at his resume, when you take a look at his credentials, when you take a look at a certain amount of other things, and the people that he has beaten, and his skill set and dominance as of late, yes, he's the #1 pound-for-pound fighter. You can argue that he's been the #1 pound-for-pound fighter ever since the Gennady Golovkin win in the rematch. So it is what it is. All right, but they can't allege that their boy Terrence Crawford is ducking because then, according to their standards, Terrence Crawford cannot be the #1 pound-for-pound. And that's really the reason why they can't have Canelo Alvarez at the #1 pound-for-pound, at least according to their standards. That's the reason why they don't have Canelo there. So if Terrence Crawford also gets alleged for ducking, then all of a sudden that's going to look really bad on him. And then they can't have a black fighter as the #1 pound-for-pound fighter. That is the main reason why these LDBC and new media channels want to put Terrence Crawford as the #1 pound-for-pound fighter. Take a look at the way that they talk about Canelo Alvarez and Vasyl Lomachenko. They say basically they're the #1 pound-for-pound fighters on certain people's lists because they got the complexion for the protection. They believe that Canelo Alvarez and Vasyl Lomachenko were the ranked #1 pound-for-pound ranked fighters because they were Caucasian or could be counted as Caucasian. That's basically what they're saying. Basically discrediting their skill sets completely. But it is what it is. I understand a certain amount of hype behind fighters who are Caucasian. I'm not saying that does not happen. Of course it does. But when it comes down to it, is Canelo Alvarez just a #1 pound-for-pound fighter because he's Latino or could count him as a Caucasian Hispanic? No. Canelo Alvarez is a #1 pound-for-pound fighter because he rightfully deserves to be. And that is the bottom line. But anyway.
As well go up to 160 and fight a champion, right? Because when I moved up to 168 and fight a champion. Because when I moved up to 160, they got aggravated with me because I was already the champion at 154. And I moved up to 160, relinquished the title, leave that alone. Let's go fight for a new title. I was in the IBF at first. Now I'm with the WBC. Went ahead and took the belt, got the belt. Now I set myself up to fight one of the best fighters in the world, which is Canelo Alvarez. They separated us through titles. Now we separated more through titles, and we separated through network. So that's not like a fight that I'm thinking that's going.
And for the people that are saying, well, you know what, I agree with Jermall Charlo. He shouldn't have to fight David Benavidez next because David Benavidez doesn't have a title. Well, you know what? Then that would mean the same thing for Canelo Alvarez. Because Canelo Alvarez just fought a WBC mandatory in Ildrum, so you should have no problem with that then. And he's fighting Billy Joe Saunders for, I believe, the WBO super middleweight title. And then from what I hear, he's going to fight another person who has the other title. I believe that's Caleb Plant. Now, we'll see if that fight happens. I really don't know. I believe Caleb Plant also is a decent threat to Canelo. Billy Joe Saunders and Caleb Plant, actually, from the 160 and 168 pound divisions, they actually might be the biggest threats to Canelo. Demetrius Andrade, maybe you can put him in there, but I just think he's a little bit more hittable than both of those fighters. But it is what it is. But anyway.
So I might as well let alone.
So once again, if you believe that Jermall Charlo shouldn't have to face David Benavidez, then Canelo Alvarez should not have to face David Benavidez either because he got his mandatory out the way. And overall, he does not have a belt, right? So you should feel the same way. But anyway.
He don't fight at 160 anymore. So am I supposed to keep chasing him? Hey, bro, come back down to 160.
Well, what do you mean, am I supposed to keep chasing him? Jermall, you're the one that claims that you want that Canelo Alvarez fight, right? Come on, bro. You apparently want that Canelo Alvarez fight. If you want it for legacy, listen, my problem with Jermall is not even just a Canelo Alvarez situation. This man does not want any top fighter within the 160 or 168 pound divisions. I'm talking about fighters who are still in their prime. He might take a Gennady Golovkin, who would probably get knocked down that fight right now because he's not the same fighter. But when it comes down to it, are you going to take on a Danny Jacobs? Are you going to take on, Demetrius Andrade? Are you going to take on a Canelo Alvarez? Are you going to take on a David Benavidez, a Caleb Plant, a Billy Joe Saunders? I haven't heard you really have any interest in any of those fighters. Now, allegedly, you've had interest in the Canelo Alvarez fight, but how much interest have you had really? I heard, apparently even from his own brother, that he turned down that contract. So it is what it is, and I believe it.
He ain't fighting. He's been fighting at 75 and 68. Dude ain't trying to cut no weight no more. So I'm at 60. What I got to do? Go up? That's the only way y'all gonna give me a fast shot. I'm up at 60 anyways. I'm trying to chase the big boy. Where the fuck is GGG? Why ain't nobody talking about him? He's still.
So, you want to fight GGG, bruh? You want to fight GGG, who looked not even impressive against Sergey Derevyanchenko? That's who you want to fight next? Now, I wonder if Jermall Charlo faces Gennady Golovkin, because we all know what AKHiTv, Dante's Boxing Nation, Boxing Ego, what the new media have been saying. You know what they've been saying, right? They've basically been saying about Canelo, and you can go ahead and check this for yourself, because I've listened to a certain amount of them say it. They said Canelo don't fight fighters anymore unless they're not in their prime, unless they have an unimpressive performance. Okay, so I'm going to hear the same energy, right? I'm going to hear the same energy if Charlo beats Gennady Golovkin. That's not an impressive performance because you guys, new media, you guys thought that he lost to Sergey Derevyanchenko. So, even in your own opinions, Gennady Golovkin is not that impressive of a win anymore, right? But I bet you money, if Jermall Charlo were to knock out Gennady Golovkin, what are the things they're going to say? Wow, no one has ever stopped Gennady Golovkin before. Canelo Alvarez couldn't even do this. I bet you money that's what they'd be saying. So I'm going to be very interested to hear what they have to say if that comes up.
Top 10. If I can't get Canelo, at least I can get GGG, right? Y'all want to see me tested. Obviously, Derevyanchenko didn't prove nothing because y'all told me that fight was going to get me to Canelo.
Why the hell would a Sergey Derevyanchenko fight give you a Canelo Alvarez fight? Like, come on, man. A Sergey Derevyanchenko fight ain't going to get you a Canelo Alvarez fight. Maybe that'll get you a Gennady Golovkin fight. That's not going to give you no damn Canelo Alvarez fight. Come on. A David Benavidez fight might give you a Canelo Alvarez fight. If you really wanted that fight, Jermall, yeah, you would be chasing him. It is what it is. You don't want that fight, man. you don't want that fight. I don't care how many of his, dumbass fan base and new media or, the LDBC, I don't care what the hell they have to say. You don't want that fight. You never did.
I beat him the way I beat him. Y'all still don't give me no credit. So, go to 168.
I give Jermall Charlo the same amount of credit that I've given Billy Joe Saunders, at least because they pretty much have the same resume. And a certain amount of people overall may disagree. But that's pretty much the level that I rank Jermall Charlo on. Both of them are A-class fighters, but both of them do need to improve their resume. So it is what it is.
To fight this fucking bum-ass little kid. He a kid, bro. Put my life on the line to go fight this little bum-ass little kid who don't got nothing to offer. Not even money. People don't even know him until they mention my name.
What are you talking about, dude? People are talking about a possible Canelo Alvarez fight versus David Benavidez fight. Come on, Charlo.
They want to see me beat his ass. They want to see me go up in weight. Do something I ain't never did before. Go up in weight.
I can assure you that a certain amount of people actually want to see your ass getting kicked if you were to face David Benavidez. Now, personally, I really don't care who wins that fight. I'll actually be probably rooting for Jermall because I believe Jermall is the better fighter. Now, in my opinion, I don't think that either Jermall or David Benavidez stand much of a chance to beat Canelo Alvarez. But I usually cheer for the better fighter. And in my opinion, Jermall Charlo is the better fighter than David Benavidez. When he says that he's a little bit too hittable, I understand completely what he means. Now, that being said, Jermall Charlo also is a little bit hittable. And sometimes he has a problem with not throwing enough. Now, of course, he does have great power in both hands. But it's not like he has Gennady Golovkin type power or anything like that. So we'll see what happens. But he does have enough power to put David Benavidez in trouble if he hits him. So I would not be shell-shocked if he were able to knock David Benavidez out. But even with that, would I still give him much of a shot to beat Canelo? No, personally, I would not. But that's just me.
Fight somebody at a whole other weight class, come back down to my weight because I'm the champ over here anyway. What, it's going to be a 10-round fight? Is it not going to be for a belt? Is it an eliminator? What makes sense, bro? Y'all got to think about what y'all saying. How is that ducking? And it's been a business. And it will never stop being a business from this point on. How is that ducking anybody? I'm a fighter. I've never been scared of nobody, no man on earth that walk.
That's bullshit, Charlo. You avoided an Andrade fight, you avoided a Canelo Alvarez fight, and you avoided the David Benavidez fight. Just stop. It is what it is.
On 2 feet. I could feel ever.
So
see, that's what I'm saying. It's all about business. It's all about business. When he says the same thing that Caleb Plant says, right? David, does he have a belt? David doesn't have a belt. Why would I fight David if he...
Well, Caleb Plant might be in line to fight Canelo Alvarez. So I can't necessarily say that that's a big problem. But is Jermall Charlo in line to face Canelo Alvarez right now, yes or no? The answer is probably no. So you should have no problem getting that fight. That's like when a certain amount of people allege that Maidana ducked Keith Thurman when he could fight Adrian Broner. Adrian Broner at the time was a very well-known fighter and had one of the belts. Like Keith Thurman at the time was a nobody. It is what it is. That'd basically be alleging the same thing. Caleb Plant might be in line to face Canelo Alvarez possibly. So if that fight were if David Benavidez versus Caleb Plant doesn't happen next, that's not really that big of a deal for Caleb Plant because Caleb Plant might possibly get the fight of a lifetime. But Jermall Charlo nor David Benavidez are in line to face Canelo Alvarez this year. So you guys should be interested in fighting each other because then that would basically make you the best contender possible that Canelo Alvarez has not beaten in that division yet, assuming he wins all those fights. But we'll see what happens.
doesn't have a belt? But guess what? Did Truex have a belt? Charlo's fighting. Is he going to fight somebody with the belt? So see, that tells you everything. These guys are ducks. They just don't want to have a hard fight. They don't want to risk their records. So that's what happens. Everybody, Canelo's also saying the same thing about David. Oh, he gets hit a lot. Oh, he's an easy fight. Well, if he's so easy.
And let me tell you what, both Jermall and Jermall have very similar problems in their style when it comes down to it. They both have very similar problems in their style. So it is not impossible for Jermall Charlo to get beat. We've already seen him nearly get beat against Matt Korobov.
See, you think he'll be easier than Jindrum? You think he'll be easier than these other fighters? Well, beat him up, David has a name right now. David is willing to fight all these guys. So if he's so easy for all these guys...
Well, you know what? We'll see. From what I'm hearing, Billy Joe Saunders has been saying some stuff lately like he hasn't been training very well. Might possibly pull out. We'll see. Although I haven't heard, him say that exactly. But there's been rumors about that. You've been talking a lot of trash. So when it comes down to it, if Billy Joe Saunders pulls out, you better stick to your word and put your son David Benavidez in there because I believe this is the father of David Benavidez. But I could be wrong, so I better hear you back up your words.
It's all about a business now for all these guys. They don't want to lose. They want to keep their belts. They want to keep their undefeated records. We're not looking for that. We are looking to test ourselves and to give you guys a good fight. And I'm going to keep saying that we just want those good fights. It doesn't matter if we win or lose. But we think we are going to win because we are training hard. And these guys, they don't even have the balls to the fights happen.
When Charlo says, why should I move up to 168? From what I got from the interview, he want to grow to the weight naturally. He does not want to move up to 168 right away because...
No, that's not what he was saying at all. But a key, once again, Charlo is your boy. Charlo, once again, if he was ducking, you'd probably have to put him off your top 10 pound for pound list. And Charlo's not even on my pound for pound list anyway. But it is the top 10, that is at least. Maybe top 20, top 30. But when it comes down to it, Charlo certainly is not top 10. But with the narratives that you have been trying to put out there, especially about Lomachenko and Canelo Alvarez, you have to basically allege that all your favorite fighters that you've been trying to put out there are not ducking. Because then basically that would make you a hypocrite. And this is what I've told people. New media, AKHiTv, they're not consistent with their energy. All right, you can very clearly tell what they're trying to do. But anyway.
According to him, is a big jump. And David Benavidez is a big kid. So he keeps saying, what is there for him? Is there a title eliminator on the line? Is there a belt?
Oh, there is. We just fought for the eliminator for the 168. Hopefully next fight we can fight for the diamond belt or something. We're there. We'll definitely be an eliminator to fight Canelo or something. But you don't even need that. Once you fight David and you beat David, you'll go straight to Canelo. So if
I agree.
He's so easy, make a lot of money.
I gotta pause this real quick, but we'll get right back into it.
Go to Canelo, make more money. He's the one that opened his mouth and said that he wanted to fight David.
I agree. You've been talking all this shit, and that David Benavidez is not even the only fighter that he has been talking shit on. He's been talking shit on Canelo. He's been talking shit on Andre. He's been talking shit on all these fighters. Yet how many elite fights has Jermall Charlo had within the past few years? But really, let's be honest here. How many big fights has Jermall Charlo really had in general? Besides the J-Rock Williams fight, which was a pretty decently big fight, how many big fights can we really say he had? I mean, Austin Trout, to be honest, let's just be real. Austin Trout was not really the same fighter when he fought him. Besides the Austin Trout and, J-Rock fight, how many big fights did he take in his career? And Charlo has not really looked all that impressive. I mean, once again, these people, Dante's Boxing Nation, AKHiTv, what they basically say is that, Canelo only takes these fights, when these guys don't look that impressive. When has Jermall Charlo ever looked like Floyd Mayweather Jr.? People are trying to act like, Jermall's out here looking like Pernell Sweet Pea Whitaker or some shit. Jermall Charlo, I mean, just take a look at this fight a couple years ago against Matt Korobov. That was a dude, I believe, that just recently got knocked out fairly quickly against Chris Eubank Jr. And I don't see Chris Eubank Jr. as an A-class fighter at all. Like, it is what it is.
He got, what's that guy's name? His blessing. The guy that we fought.
Anthony
Durrell. That's when he started. Hey, you got my blessing. He gave him his blessing to go to 168. Then he says he's going to break David's neck. Then he says, so what do we say? Let's make it happen. Then everything stopped. Now the trainer jumped in and said, no, he's not going to go. There's nothing on the table. Don't you agree, though, that once he beats David for an eliminator also,
I agree 100%. I think you're making 100% sense. I want to hear what AKHiTv has to say to this, because this dude is talking 100% truth right now, at least when it comes to Charlo. But anyway.
We'll get that fight with Canelo after he fights Sanders and then maybe fight Caleb Plant. That's a fight for sure. After that, Canelo does not have any more fighters.
At least at the 168-pound division. The only fights to me that would be acceptable if Jermall Charlo and David Benavidez were to face each other, and there would, obviously whoever were to win that fight, the only fights that would be acceptable if Canelo were not able to fight them after the winner of that fight would be either Dimitri Bivol or Artur Beterbiev at 175. I'm trying to think if there's any other bigger fights at the 160-pound division or the 168, but I don't think there is. Because I'm assuming that maybe he'll fight Caleb Plant this year or somebody else. Because apparently, according to Canelo, he's going to try to unify the whole entire 168-pound division. So we'll see what happens.
We don't have any more fighters. He doesn't have any more fighters, so let's make this fight happen.
I definitely agree. I think if Charlo does move up in weight, the winner will force Canelo to get in the ring with him. Regardless if
another
he
thing.
wants to or not.
I want to point another thing too. I want to thank all Charlo's fans for their support, because they did support him like I did. But now they found the truth about Charlo. He's a duck. So all his fans are our fans now, because they're supporting him.
And you notice that AKHiTv has not agreed with him. But he has no problem saying that Vasyl Lomachenko avoids Devin Haney. And in my opinion, Lomachenko seems to be avoiding a Devin Haney as well. But I have not done my research necessarily on that. What I'll say is this. If Lomachenko really wanted that Teofimo Lopez fight that bad, that rematch, he would face Devin Haney for the other belt. And he would basically force Teofimo Lopez to fight him or to move out of the weight division. So Lomachenko does not seem very interested to me to face a Devin Haney next. So it is what it is. I have no problem admitting that. Once again, I have no racial bias when it comes to these fights. But when it comes, really in anywhere. You know, just to clarify. But, you know, I'm mainly a boxing guy, so that's why I say that. But when it comes down to the overall bottom line is this. Once again, AKHiTv, New Media, LDBC, they have very much racial bias. So it is what it is.
Because, you know, we want to fight one of the best fighters there is. With a lot of respect, he's a good fighter. But he's just a duck. And people don't like to be represented by a duck. So, I mean, little by little, too, you know, I mean, he's not going to have a choice. Or either he shut his mouth up, not talk, and not say nothing about 168, and nobody will bother him, you know? But his mistake is that he wanted to intimidate.
I agree. No one would have a problem with him staying at 160 and even facing some of those fighters there or try to unify the division if he would have just shut the hell up. But Jermall Charlo is talking all this shit, basically saying that he's going to go up and knock David Benavidez out and that he wants that Canelo Alvarez fight. Well, if you want that Canelo Alvarez fight, and apparently you're going to whoop David Benavidez's ass, this is what you've been saying for a couple years now, go up and fight David Benavidez, bruh. Go ahead and do it.
David at 168, and David's not going to get intimidated that easy. At the end of the day, man, we're not thinking about losing. But it doesn't matter sometimes. You know, you gain more fans when you fight the good fights. So when you give people the really good fights, and you're not...
Well, that's not necessarily true. You lose a certain amount of fans if you lose fights, but it is what it is. Either way, I think a certain amount of people would respect the Jermall Charlo and David Benavidez winner. It is what it is, but when it comes down to it, that'd be a very great fight. And to me, that's a 50-50 fight, even though I'd probably favor Jermall Charlo by a little bit. But that's a great fight. And if Jermall Charlo really had the confidence to beat David Benavidez, and if you truly wanted that Canelo Alvarez fight, why not go up there and face him? It is what it is.
I'm not afraid of nobody because everybody works so hard to buy the networks, you know, like the zones, the show times, and all that, man. We work so hard for that we want to see really good fights. At the end of the day, they just want to be entertained.
Hold it. You're not that pretty. I'm a bad man. Wait. I took up the wall. I took up the wall. That's what I said, Lois.
So you notice overall that AKHiTv has not said much on Jermall Charlo, but it is what it is. We'll see what he says a little bit later on. But Jermall Charlo very clearly to me does not want that David Benavidez fight. And let me tell you something, he's not serious about facing a lot of these top contenders. He may face a Gennady Golovkin next because Gennady Golovkin at this point in time in his career, he's basically done. So it is what it is. To be honest with you, I think Jermall Charlo could very much likely knock Gennady Golovkin out because Gennady Golovkin looks like rotten meat. He looks done. He does not look like the same fighter at all, you know, ever since that Canelo Alvarez rematch. So we'll see. But that's really about it for today. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see if Jermall Charlo is serious about potentially facing some of these top contenders. I don't believe he will be, but we'll see what happens. That's really about it for today. Thanks so much for watching. I'll talk to you all later.